Why homes are beating offices in the wealth war. The laptop sat open on the corner of the kitchen table, squeezed between yesterday's mail and a half-empty juice box. She stared at the screen, listening to the hum of the dishwasher, wondering if this was really possible, building something real from a space that felt anything but professional. She wasn't chasing empire, she was chasing breathing room, the kind of income that wouldn't ask her to trade mornings with her kids or evenings with herself, just enough to feel like her life was hers again. For years, she'd believed success only happened in tall buildings with glass doors and conference rooms, that real businesses needed offices, employees, overhead, that working from home was somehow less legitimate, less ambitious, less everything. But something was shifting in the world outside her window. While corporate towers emptied and returned and emptied again, something quieter was happening in homes across the country. Kitchen tables were becoming command centers. Spare bedrooms were turning into studios. Garages were housing operations that traditional businesses couldn't even imagine. According to recent data, home-based businesses now account for over half of all small businesses in North America, and they're growing faster than any other segment. Not because of a pandemic, because of a realization. The rules had changed, and no one had bothered to announce it. She remembered the morning she first noticed her neighbor, the one who used to leave at 6:30 every morning in pressed suits, was suddenly home, not unemployed, not struggling, thriving, running a consulting practice from her dining room that earned more than her old corporate salary ever did. How? She'd asked over the fence one afternoon. The answer was simpler than she expected. I stopped paying rent to someone else's vision of what work should look like. That conversation planted something. A question that wouldn't stay quiet. What if the real wealth war wasn't happening in office parks at all? What if it was happening right here, in the margins of ordinary life, in the hours most people believed were too fragmented to matter? Part of her resisted. The old programming ran deep. Real professionals have real offices. Real businesses require real infrastructure. Success looks like commutes and corner offices and business cards with embossed lettering. But the numbers told a different story. Home-based businesses spend 70% less on overhead than traditional operations. They scale faster, pivot easier, and survive economic shifts that crush brick-and-mortar competitors. They're not playing the same game, they're playing a smarter one. She started researching late at night, after the house finally went quiet. The stories she found weren't what she expected. These weren't tech geniuses or trust fund kids experimenting with side hustles. They were people like her, parents, caregivers, people who'd been told their circumstances made them unemployable, unmarketable, unrealistic, and yet they were winning. One woman had built a six-figure coaching practice from her basement in Ohio. Another ran a product design business from her one-bedroom apartment in Portland, serving clients across 3 continents. A former teacher turned her kitchen into a content studio and now employed 5 people remotely. None of them had fancy offices. Most of them had started with less than $1,000. Some had started with less than $100. The difference wasn't capital. It was clarity. They'd stopped asking permission from a system designed to keep them small. They'd stopped waiting for perfect conditions that would never arrive. They'd looked at what they had, time, skills, a decent internet connection, and built something the old economy couldn't see coming. She felt something shift in her chest. Not quite hope, not yet, but something close. Possibility, maybe. The sense that the story she'd been telling herself about what was realistic might have been someone else's story all along. What would you have done in her place? The doubt arrived right on schedule. It always did. Maybe she was different. Maybe she didn't have the right background, the right network, the right whatever invisible thing separated people who succeeded from people who just survived. Maybe ambition was a luxury she couldn't afford, not with kids who needed her. Routines that barely held together, energy that ran out before the day did. Maybe success just wasn't meant for someone like her. She almost closed the laptop, almost convinced herself this was just another distraction, another way to avoid accepting that her life was already full, already enough, already complete. Then she remembered something her daughter had said the week before, watching her scroll through job listings during breakfast. "Mommy, why do you always look sad when you look at your computer?" That question cut deeper than any corporate rejection ever had, because her daughter was right. She was sad. Not because she lacked ambition, but because she'd buried it so deep she'd almost convinced herself it wasn't there. She'd learned to call exhaustion contentment, to call resignation acceptance, to call surrender peace. But it wasn't peace. It was slow suffocation dressed up as responsibility. The truth was harder to admit. She didn't just want income, she wanted identity. Not the kind handed to her by job titles or organizational charts, but the kind built by her own hands, shaped by her own choices, sustained by her own effort. She wanted to show her kids what it looked like to build something. To start small and stay steady. To turn ordinary moments into extraordinary outcomes through nothing more complex than showing up, day after day, even when no one was watching. The office economy had never offered her that. It had offered a trade, time for money, autonomy for security, selfhood for survival. And she'd taken it, because that's what responsible people did. But the wealth war had moved. And suddenly, the trade wasn't mandatory anymore. Home-based entrepreneurs report higher life satisfaction scores than traditional employees, not because they work less, most work more, but because they work on their own terms. They control their schedules, choose their clients, build businesses that fit their lives instead of lives that fit their businesses. That control, it turned out, was worth more than any corner office. She started small, almost embarrassingly small, a simple service she could offer online, something she already knew how to do, packaged in a way that solved a real problem for a real person. No business plan, no investor pitch, no revolutionary idea. Just clarity about what she could offer and courage to offer it. The first client came through a Facebook group. The second through a referral. The third through a cold email she almost didn't send because it felt too bold, too presumptuous, too something. Within 3 months, she was earning enough to cover groceries. Within 6, enough to cover childcare. Within a year, enough to stop checking her bank account with that familiar knot of dread. Her workspace was still her kitchen counter. Her office hours were still fragmented between school pickups and meal prep. Her business cards, she'd finally ordered some, still listed a home address she'd once felt embarrassed about. But none of that mattered anymore, because somewhere along the way, she'd stopped measuring success by office square footage and started measuring it by something more honest, freedom. Not the kind that looks impressive on LinkedIn. The kind that feels like breathing after years of holding your breath. Sometimes growth doesn't look like progress. It looks like staying, like choosing, every morning, to show up for something you're building, even when no one's applauding, even when the results come slower than you hoped, even when every voice in your head says you should quit and get a real job. But this was a real job. Maybe the realest one she'd ever had. The statistics backed her up. Home-based businesses have lower failure rates than traditional startups. They pivot faster during economic uncertainty. They survive recessions that crush commercial real estate. They're not just viable, they're fragile. They get stronger precisely because they're not playing by the old rules. She smiled, not because it was easy, but because it was finally hers. The wealth war wasn't being fought in boardrooms anymore. It was being fought in spare bedrooms and kitchen nooks and garage offices. It was being fought by people who'd been invisible to the traditional economy, dismissed as uncommitted or unserious or unrealistic, and they were winning. Quietly, persistently, inevitably. Because the office had always been a symbol, not a requirement. A way to signal legitimacy to a world that confused presence with productivity, FaceTime with value, overhead with success. But symbols only work until everyone realizes they're just symbols. The new economy didn't care about your commute. It cared about your competence. It didn't measure your worth by the size of your workspace, but by the size of the problem you could solve. It didn't ask where you worked. It asked if you delivered. And from a kitchen table in a house no one would call impressive, she delivered. What helped her most wasn't just the online tools she discovered, though they mattered. It was realizing she didn't need permission to start small. She tested a few platforms before finding what truly worked. And honestly, it changed everything. This isn't a promotion, just something that made her path a little lighter. The link is below if you want to explore it. But the real tool was mental. The permission she finally gave herself to be ambitious and available, professional and present, successful and still human. The office's economy had told her those combinations were impossible, that she had to choose. That wanting both was naive, entitled, unrealistic. But from where she sat now, surrounded by the beautiful chaos of a life that was messy and meaningful and entirely her own, those warnings felt like relics from a world that no longer existed. The wealth war had moved home. And home, it turned out, had been the strongest position all along. Her kids saw it too. Not in the money, though that helped, but in the way she moved through the house, now lighter, more present, less haunted by the question of whether she was enough. She was enough, not because she'd achieved some external marker of success, but because she'd stopped letting other people define what success meant. Her daughter asked one morning, watching her work at the kitchen table, "Mommy, are you happy now when you look at your computer?" She paused, looked at the screen. Looked at her daughter, felt the weight of the question and the lightness of the answer. "Yeah, baby, I am." That moment mattered more than any revenue milestone, more than any client testimonial, more than any business award she might someday win. Because the real victory wasn't building a business, it was rebuilding herself. When she poured her coffee the next morning, it was still hot because this time, she wasn't rushing, she was building. The office tower still stood, of course. Still gleaming, still expensive, still demanding presence and compliance and the familiar trade of time for money. But she wasn't there, and neither were millions of others like her. People who'd discovered that the real wealth war wasn't about climbing corporate ladders, but about building something that didn't require permission to exist. Home-based businesses now generate over $1 trillion annually in the United States alone. That's not a side hustle economy. That's a revolution hiding in plain sight, happening in spaces the traditional economy never valued, built by people it never took seriously. And it's just beginning, because once you realize you don't need the office to build wealth, you start questioning what else you don't need. The commute, the dress code, the performance of productivity, the geography that limits your talent pool, the overhead that eats your profit, the structures that claim to enable success but mostly just extract value. The home-based economy isn't just cheaper, it's freer. And freedom, it turns out, compounds faster than any investment strategy. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, the one staring at the laptop, surrounded by juice boxes in doubt, wondering if this was really possible. She'd want to tell that woman something, not advice. Exactly, just witness. It's possible. Not easy, not instant, not without setbacks and doubts and mornings where you question everything, but possible. The kitchen table is enough. The fragmented hours are enough. You are enough. The wealth war moved home. And home has been waiting for you all along. Disclaimer: this content is for educational purposes only and does not replace consultation or assistance from a professional. Always consult a qualified professional for any questions related to finance, business, or investments. Tell us what part of this story resonated with you most and where you're watching from. Your journey might just inspire the next one. Tell us which country or city you're watching from. See you in the next video.